Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with the 31 days of gangster films and police films from the year 1970 to the present day. And it is my hope that this can afford us, you and me, my dear friends, with the opportunity to be able to speak about as many films as possible over the course of these 31 days with respect to these very electrifying and utterly entertaining genres of cinema, those being the gangster film genre and the police film genre, respectively. Today, specifically for this video, I'd like to focus in on the gangster film genre element. And I have a film that is regarded as being one of the very best examples of the gangster film. It is from a filmmaker whose films we have spoken about many a time over the course of these 31 days, whose filmography is immense. It is incredible. It has so many examples of mesmerizing, electrifying, totally energetic works of cinema, including this particular work. It is celebrated, has been celebrated since its initial release, and continues to be celebrated by many people around the world alike. And so this is a film that I think when one speaks about genre or gangster films in the genre, when one speaks about this genre, I think we can find this film being discussed a lot, because it is so popular, it is so famous, it is so electrifying, it is regarded as one of the very best. I am speaking, of course, of a film that is described as being from 1990, and it has among its incredible cast people like Lorraine Bracco and Paul Sorvino and Frank Vincent and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta and others. And this is from the director, who is Martin Scorsese. And the name of the work is Goodfellas. Goodfellas from 1990. This is like a work of cinematic lightning energy that is caught for all time, for many a people to enjoy, be enthralled by, be horrified by, be shocked by, time and time again. This is a film for the ages. This is in many ways a type of generation-defining work in all sorts, and with all the implications that that phrase, I think, brings with it. This is that big a film, Goodfellas. And when I saw this film, Goodfellas, this was again back in the days of VHS. And that VHS tape and the poster that was on the walls of the VHS rental store, and that feeling back in the 90s, it's still with me, and it resonates with me. And when I put the tape into the player and I watched it for the first time, it was stunning. It was like, what was I in for? I felt like I was in this rush, this adrenaline rush that suddenly halted and suddenly shocked and then suddenly stopped for laughs and for energy and for wonderful camera work and swirl and the haze of a type of dream world that turns nightmarish on an instant. This is the world of the gangsters. This is the world of New York crime. And we have these characters, Paulie, Karen, and Tommy, and Jimmy, and Henry Hill, Ray Liotta's character, and others in this world, in this community, where crime is a day-to-day thing, where also we have the interactions between and among characters, a day-to-day thing, where we have things can be pleasant and things can be very much having a feeling of belonging and family on the one hand at 1 minute, and they can suddenly turn deadly, and they can suddenly turn vicious and maddening and frightening the other on a single instant. And you don't know whether to laugh or to smile or to cry or to scream out in terror, or maybe any and all of the above. But that is one of the great brilliant strokes of this work, Goodfellas, by Martin Scorsese and company, because it has this ability to capture everything all at once. Again, it is lightning energy captured in this work of cinema for all to see, for all time, forever. And that is one of the brilliant things. You know, it is a comedy, it is a horror film, it is a violent crime epic, it is a family drama, it is a story, it is a romance story, it is a love story, all at once. It's all there all at once. It's like operating on all cylinders, full throttle on every single element of genre cinema all at once, and then some. And that is one of the great things too, because it goes off in these firework displays of bravura and genius and visual stimulus, and also sound stimulus and the like, to tell these stories of Henry Hill and his life and his childhood and his growth and his involvement in this world of crime, where he meets these, for him, larger-than-life figures like Paulie, like Jimmy, like Tommy, and others, how he meets Karen, how they get together, and how they also grow and evolve and maybe change over time as event after event after event after event build and build and build in this life, in the life of being a wise guy. In the immortal words of Henry Hill and his great narration, and his captivating narration, and perhaps even his ill-timed, say, allegiances and the regrets or lack of regrets, depending on how one interprets the various activities and circumstances and developments that occur, again, over this span of a crime saga epic deluxe to the max that is Goodfellas. And so we have it all here, my dear friends. It is here and then some. This is utterly famous. This has sequences that have gone down in cinema history, that have gone down in the history of not just Scorsese works, not just gangster genre cinema, not just crime epics, but have gone down in the history books of U.S. cinema, of cinema period, in terms of the iconic status that this film and, for example, specific scenes, specific lines of dialogue have contributed to cementing that status in furtherance of the great legend and legacy of this film, Goodfellas. So. This is a work that it has it all. It really does. It has it all. Now, it is a very exquisitely made film as well. One of the things too that I remember, I've seen this film countless times. I was in film classes where this was one of the films that was studied, and one of the things that was so striking and remarkable to me upon, say, watching it in the context of, say, film studies classes, etc., was just how detailed the techniques were that are employed in the making of Goodfellas. And I mean this in many aspects. I mean, the editing techniques are top notch and incredibly almost experimental in terms of the purposely jarring nature or the juxtapositions that are raised that are also creating a sense of either paradox or contradiction, or a sense of blending, and also the gliding sense of metaphors. And that metaphor can be a metaphor of doom or a metaphor of jubilant, of feeling joy and jubilance, or whatever the case may be. And so this is one aspect of the film that is very much key in terms of the craft. There's also the way in which the camera moves, the gliding nature or the rough nature of it, and the way that things are sped up or slowed down, repeated action or different perspectives, the way that there are no cuts and maybe the camera seems to glide or float throughout space, and there are some very famous scenes of extended shots in this film that also portray and exhibit the sense of the bravura and the true artistry that is on display here. And again, also borrowing from this experimental film tradition, borrowing from a Nouvelle Vague tradition, borrowing from the great wealth of cinema knowledge and history that is within the mind and heart of the filmmakers, including, of course, Martin Scorsese. It seems to be bursting forth in all aspects, at all the corners of the frame in this film, Goodfellas. And so, in that way, this is also an example of a type of masterclass of filmmaking and film craft and artistry, and it's all here. And so, it is packed with so many treats and so many tricks of cinema. The grammar books, the cinema grammar book seems to be being pushed to their very limits in this brilliant way. And so I'm very grateful to have been able to take a class. I mean, I wasn't the best student in the class by any stretch, but it was an opportunity for me to get a sense of, say, films like Goodfellas that were in this way really great technical achievements of cinema. While at the same time showing us the love and the hysteria and the paranoia and the rush. I mentioned it before, the adrenaline rush that is here, and that can be due to the thrill of the chase. That can be the adrenaline rush that is felt in these characters getting away with things, getting away with committing crimes, getting away with murder. And that feeling also, that could be also the swirl of adrenaline, the swirl of drug-induced, say, euphoria, or whatever the case may be. And that high is embodied in a lot of what's going on here in terms of the visuals and also in terms of what we hear. The soundtrack is top-notch stuff. I mean, it is Scorsese firing on all cylinders in terms of the way in which music is applied and also the visual flourishes are applied. And two, this is not without a sense of moral complexity and ambiguity as well, because, as I mentioned, there's this way in which this film depicts violence, depicts crimes, depicts the way in which human beings can potentially harm other human beings. And in that mix and in that flourish, we have the way in which cinema is applied. The rule books are applied, or even the rules of grammar are applied, or the rules are broken and maybe replaced by other new, fresh, inventive ideas that are also paying homage to the great traditions of cinema history. Now, that is used in the effort to try to express a type of euphoria or a high with regard to the acts that we might be witness to as we watch the film. But also we understand that there are grave consequences. There are dire consequences. I mean, we feel life, but we also feel death. We feel the pain of death. We feel the heaviness of death. We feel the gravity of death, and we feel the sudden shock of death and all that entails, the loss and the panic and the frenzy. And so we feel the euphoric highs. We also feel the deadly cold lows as well. And so that sudden rush, that sudden movement between one position and another position is one of the great strengths of this film, Goodfellas. And we never lose sight of that, which means, too, that this film, as euphoric and as almost a high rush energy experience this film is, this also is a film that is filled with so much tension, so much suspense, so much off balance, off kilter film viewing experiences, that it makes for this utterly encompassing, engrossing experience that is also terrifying and edge of your seat stuff. There is a particular sequence, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there is a particular sequence involving two main characters, and one of the characters is directing another character to go into this alleyway and go into a particular a back alleyway. It's right over there, saying to this character, oh, just go down that way, don't worry about it. And there's a sense of safety and there's a sense of trust, but then all of a sudden there's a paranoia, there is a sudden panic that we feel. Things turn slow motion. There is some ominous looking figure at the end of the alleyway, and there's some sounds, etc. And indeed, we realize that maybe this is a deadly situation, much more deadly than we had first anticipated before. And so that means any moment in an instant can turn utterly deadly, utterly serious, which makes this film as exhilarating and funny as it is. It also makes it so, so terrifying. And one of the sequences that is perhaps one of the most celebrated sequences in this film, and perhaps even in the Scorsese filmography catalog, I think also exhibits this and represents this way that comedy and humor and this light-hearted nature can suddenly turn deadly and ice cold serious, just like that. And it is a sequence. It is. Am I a clown? Do I amuse you sequence between Ray Liotta's character and Joe Pesci's character. And so we have that as a very, very famous example of what this film can do and how masterful this film controls our emotions and controls our sense of involvement in the film, both being absorbed by the film and then suddenly being horrified and repulsed by it in a given instant. So this is the stuff of cinematic gold in the form of a film like Goodfellas. And I mentioned very briefly some of the performances, but let me mention again, the performances are also one of the great strengths. This is a film, Scorsese films are known for a number of things, one of which being the great performances by the great actors. And here is another example of that, my friend. We have the type of, say, amoral center, perhaps, and that ambiguity and the rush and the romanticism that leads way to a sense of cynicism over time, as expressed by the Henry Hill character, as portrayed by the great Ray Liotta here, who is a type of center or anchor or focal point for us, the viewers, to hear and to get the story from, and to hear the narration from, and to follow the story. And it is a labyrinth. It's a story that goes back and forth, many twists and turns, and so we have this this anchor and this guide, as it were, through these stories. And it's a great guide, by the way, and embodied by Ray Liotta's wonderful performance. And along the way, we meet the various characters that he meets. So Karen, the great performance by Lorraine Bracco. This is another brilliant one. And we also get a sense, too, of that character's being swept up in the danger and the romance, as well as becoming directly involved in Henry's life and also the life overall. And that life, too, involves meeting people like Paulie, portrayed by the brilliant Paul Sorvino, and also the other characters, too, that are key to the life and existence of Henry, those being Tommy and Jimmy. And so we have Tommy, the Joe Pesci character, which is a celebrated performance for good reason, because it's one of those brilliant performances of the Scorsese canon. And the way it goes and the way it turns, the way it starts and continues on to its conclusion. Wow, what a ride that is. And it provides a nice counterbalance to the portrayal of Jimmy by Robert De Niro, who has this tough guy persona, who has this sense of maybe of a sort of brotherly devotion that also can become deadly, and that also can become selfish, and that also can turn itself in very vicious and sinister ways, while also expressing a sense of closeness and camaraderie, especially between and among these three people, Jimmy, Tommy, and Henry, which forms this very peculiar and interesting triumvirate of characters that follow through, and they each have their own set of fireworks that are set off, dimensions. They can combine, they can clash, but when they clash, my goodness, stand back, because the fireworks will then grow and explode exponentially in a way that is captured with such brilliance, and again, in the form of this lightning energy film, captured for eternity in the form of this film by Scorsese, that is Goodfellas. So the performances are top-notch, the cinematic, technical aspects are top-notch, the music is top-notch, the story is top-notch, everything about it just screams a landmark status that it deserves, and it has, and it's always had since its release, its initial release, and it continues to have to this very day. This is one of the great examples of the works of Scorsese. You didn't need me to say that, though, because this is already something that is well regarded, well believed, and for good reason, because it is. This is one of the greats. And it is my great honor to be able to speak a little bit about this film in the course of these 31 days. What a film this is. Wow. From 1990. This is the work from Martin Scorsese, and it is this, Goodfellas. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.